Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist by Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm working on the second part of The Vow, starting with shading and putting in details with colored pencils, and I'm talking to you about why I chose with the focal point this time around rather than the background, which colors I choose, how I want to make something pop even more, and where my light source is off screen in this particular page. I hope you enjoy. So let's get to shading. I'm gonna start off with the foreground, so these three people that are here, and I'm gonna start with Claire, with her hair though, not her dress. I want two browns. I do have the gray already here for her dress, and I'm also gonna pick my indigo blue, of course, and a little bit of color for her skin. So these are the pencils that I plan using on her. Let's get them all nicely sharpened so that I have a great tip. At least anything but the Payne's Gray. I want that to be a little softer. So I'm not gonna sharpen that pencil, but all the others. And I definitely need to order Sepia and Payne's Gray, because I need to replace those pencils soon. Now, let's start with Claire's hair. She has a light brown hair, so I'm just gonna go and add a little bit of colored pencil to the right-hand side. So I'm gonna shade towards the right-hand side. There's somewhere, there's a light source off frame, off screen. You can't really see it, but I think there's a church window maybe somewhere. So I'm gonna shade towards the right. That's my artistic license. I can do so. And I'm gonna add a little bit of that light brown to her hair to shade. And since I do have the underpainting done with watercolors, I can work rather fast. I don't have to regard any white speckles on the paper that could make this page look unfinished. I took care of having everything colored with the watercolors underneath, and that makes the working process faster, I'd say. At least it feels like that. I mean, I would say it's definitely faster than only working with colored pencils, because if you look at how many parts of a video series I had for certain other pictures of this book where I only used colored pencil, you know that this is quite the slow medium. But having it on top of another medium, in this case watercolors, makes this a little faster. So I'm shading her with the light brown and the sepia, and then I can move on to the skin tone already. Also bring that in from the right, not disregarding the candle lights though. So there's light bouncing off of her skin towards the right hand side too, because there's candles, but here where the sleeve is casting a shadow onto the skin, I can go in and shade a bit. Maybe go a little darker even. So I'm taking one of the tones I would actually more likely use for lips and such, not necessarily skin, but just to add a little bit of oomph to her skin. I'm gonna use that particular one, and then I can already move on to the big part, which is Payne's gray pencil on the dress. Now the dress is rather dark already, especially on the top part here on the bodice. I added quite a bit of Payne's gray pigment. So I'm just going over some of those lines here, darkening them up, also those ruffles here on the sleeve, darkening them, and I'm taking a rather blunt pencil to not have too particular kind of lines standing out. I want to put them on top with colored pencil 2, but I'm gonna use indigo for it. So I'm using the Payne's gray as the main shading color here underneath some of these bits, like the collar or whatever you want to call that part of the dress, shading towards the right still. And then I'm gonna put indigo on top for the very dark details. But first, Payne's gray. Again, shading towards the right, like major shading, not the details per se, although could add some of the lines here on those ruffles. And then I can already move on to the skirt. Of course, here on top where the fabric is way denser, the folds are way further together. There's of course a little more shading going on because it's just way darker. If fabric lays in a more denser way, you automatically get a darker look of things if they overlap. So bringing in that dark gray pencil and let it feather out towards the bottom. So of course adding a little bit to those lines here where there's quite a bit of shading going on, because this is where the valleys in those folds are. That is where there's less light, so I need a shadow. I can stop my vlogging camera because I'm done filming that part for the vlog. Put it to sleep. Can work later on to start this video, so the clip you saw at the very beginning will be filmed after I'm finished with filming this particular part of the video. But I need to slightly sharpen my pencil here. actually try to work without the extender. Let's see if I can manage. Or if that is not that great for my hand, because it's pretty much the same size. It's a little smaller than my sepia pencil. I might have to use an extender on that too, because this is not very comfortable for me. So I'll prefer working with a pencil extender there. So I'm just gonna shade the whole skirt. And it's quite repetitive, I know, but the skirt of the dress here is a rather big surface, so of course that takes a minute longer, and it can be therefore quite repetitive to shade all of these folds here. It is still way faster than only working with colored pencils, so you shouldn't get tired of me shading that dress. And I will move on to other bits too in a hot second, so be patient. And if this is a little too boring for you, you can either skip ahead in the video or watch it with maybe double speed if you don't have the time to sit through a video that is however long this video is going to be. So just use the tools that are given to you by YouTube if you like. I'm totally fine with it. I won't feel offended or anything. Just, you know, I'm very happy that you're watching regardless. And if it's a little boring to you to see the repetitive work, why not make it comfortable for you and nice, and use the double speed button or skip ahead. So I won't be able to finish this picture in this video, I'm very sure. But since I'm filming daily currently to get videos done, I will finish it tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to film again. And then I will see that this picture is already finished. You will have to wait a week. I'm sorry about that. But I'm getting either already very close to the time of year where I actually do have my vacation while you see these videos, or I am already on vacation, so I'm enjoying myself no matter how. Like, either I'm currently writing stories and adventures, or I'm probably crafting, if it's still October, I'm definitely crafting the advent calendar boxes for my roommate. So I'm enjoying myself either way, because that is why I had to film ahead and make a little space in my calendar for me to do things. But I'm also enjoying the time that I do have right now. It's actually I think it's the last day of August, or second to last day. I don't know when 1st of September is. Hold on. December, November, October, September, August. Okay, so it's the second to last day of August today. It's the 30th. So I will have this picture probably be done in August. Ha! That's awesome. I really like how well I get ahead with my filming schedule, how energized I am, how much I can get done with coloring and videos and painting and drawing and all of that. I really like it, because honestly, over the last couple of weeks, when we had the super hot weather, I struggled with my energy, and that meant that I couldn't do artwork all day long and concentrate on something for quite a couple of hours. Now that it's way cooler, I mean, I'm wearing a 3/4 kind of a sleeve shirt today. It's way cooler and I can do more. I have way more energy. It's awesome. It's lovely, and I love spending my days in the studio, being creative and doing things. And honestly, the time of year is coming up for me that is my most creative kind of season of the year. Late summer and autumn are the seasons in my life. I'm so creative, so inspired by things. I have tons and tons of ideas, some of them good, and I work on them. Some of them, maybe not that great, but still, my brain is on fire in that regard. I have ideas left and right. I'm very inspired. I'm very creative. And I love that time of year. It's very stressful for me because it's exhausting for my brain that I do have so many ideas and such and pictures in my mind, and pretty much anything that I say could potentially spark either a book, so a writing project. It could spark a painting. It could lead to a crafting project. There's just so many ways for me to be creative and well, inspired, that it's kind of exhausting because I have that all day, every day. And I pretty much just have a notebook beside me all the time, or an audio recorder or something, so that I can either write down ideas or just dictate them to myself to not forget, and work on stuff and get it done once the thought is out of my mind. And sometimes I just don't have the time to always work on something right away. So I need to remember that I had such and such an idea. So I'm writing things down so I can work on them later. And that's quite exhausting because I have it all day long, every day for like a couple of months. So it started mid-August with me. Now it's end of August. I have a ton of things that I'm doing so that I can work on another creative project that came to mind. So I'm doing the recording thing of more ideas even, so thinking about how I want to craft Johan's advent calendar, for example, which I'm gonna do in October. I'm having lots of ideas and creative outlets of how I want to do that and what I want to accomplish, what kind of style I want to use, and so on and so on. So I'm, by the way, using my dark indigo pencil to just go over some of those very dark lines, or lines that are supposed to be very dark. So just enhancing contrast there. So yeah, that's what I'm doing all day, every day. I have a very long list of art projects that came to mind. Some of them are just like snippets of ideas and pictures I do have in my head. So it could be that I'm gonna combine an idea or two and make it into one project. Not sure yet. I'm just gonna go with the flow and see where my inspiration takes me. And once I do get out of that state where just idea after idea after idea is pretty much jumping into my head, I can work on, okay, can I combine these two ideas? What about those two? How could I make that happen? Would that work? What technique am I gonna use? Do I want this or that? So it's more like the technical side of things after that, but right now I'm still only in idea creative mode and, well, writing down lots and lots of ideas while I film other videos here to have time to work on said ideas. So yeah, there's a thing for you. I wonder if you have kind of like the same thing going on, if you have a particular season of the year that awakes your creative juices, so to say. She is, by the way, done. I'm gonna add a little gel pen later on to the bottom of the dress. Maybe that line needs to be darkened. There we go. But Claire is done. Maybe a little blue on the choker. Yeah, just a tiny bit, like so. And I can move on to the priest. I'm gonna use pretty much the same hair color, like the light one that I also used with Claire, but I'm gonna add a different kind of a tone. He's gonna be lighter. This is another pencil, it's called Bister, and I'm not gonna use the sepia pencil on him when it comes to his hair, but I'm gonna use the Bister pencil. Ouch. And I'm hurting myself on what because I'm bumping against things. That is not that great. So I'm gonna shade his hair towards the back and the right. Then I'm gonna bring in that Bister pencil lay it down, and there's a little bit of a subtle difference between the two. So Claire and the priest, he looks way blonder, maybe a little more reddish brown than she does. So that is something. And then I can move on to the skin for him. Definitely gonna shade him towards the right too. I'm gonna add that very light brown that I used for his hair as the shading color number 2 on his skin. So there's maybe a little more sun that had kissed his skin in comparison to Claire. So he's a little more, well, not sunburned, but sun-kissed. So his skin tone looks a little different. And of course I'm also gonna draw in or color his eyebrows, and for that I'm taking the brown pencil that I used before, same with the eyes. I'm gonna use a black pencil on top of that later on. For the lips or the mouth itself, I'm just gonna use that light brown pencil. Now I can move on to his hands. So adding a little shadow here and there. The sleeves are gonna cast shadows on his hands, so I can work rather quickly on it. There we go. Now I can move on to a warm gray to shade his necktie. I'm taking warm gray number 2, which is a little lighter. I can still darken things up if I need to, but I don't want to go too dark. I guess I need to go a little darker, but let's start with the number 2 and then go in with warm gray number 4. And add a few lines here. And a little bit of shadow on that knot. There we go. Maybe a little bit of Payne's gray. There we go. On to his vest. I'm gonna use, what are you called? Green gold to shade that vest, or try to shade it. I might add a little bit of a yellowish kind of brown, but let's see how much I can shade. Oh yeah, I don't necessarily need the or not the, but yellowish brown here. That's actually not too shabby. I like that. Again, I'm disregarding the buttons for now. They're gonna be put in with gel pens or a marker at the very end. I'm gonna disregard them while I'm in the colored pencil stage. There we go. But what I'm not gonna disregard is the fact that my cup is empty and I need a new tea. So I'm back in a hot editing second. Tea is delivered. Let me take a quick sip. Oh yeah, that's yummy. Now, on to the jacket of the priest. I'm gonna take a quite reddish brown. This is called Burnt Sienna. And I'm gonna shade the jacket with it. So, gotta sharpen my pencil first, and then again shade towards the right. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of sepia here for those cuffs on the sleeves. There's maybe a little bit of a darker shade also here underneath the collar. Same goes for the other side. Starting with the collar on the shoulders, pulling the light brown pencil down. Same here on that lower part, underneath the hands. And then of course, also here underneath the collar, there's tiny little lines here that indicate where shadows go. Which can be quite helpful if you're maybe a beginner who's not that sure yet on where to put a shadow in their artwork. If it's correct to put a shadow towards the left or the right, depending on what kind of light you have, and well, regarding all of the physics laws and such. So staying with realism maybe. So I like that you can use coloring books to practice on certain things. Ooh. And you might get a little help with things in coloring books. For example, like with this one here, when it certainly helps with learning anything about light and shadow. Because you have a little bit of line work put in. That helps you out with where things are supposed to go. There we go. That is the priest done. And I can already move on to Jamie, and it's only been like half an hour-ish. So maybe I can shade way more than I actually expected. Let's move on to Jamie. So for him, I need red browns. So let's see, I want this one here. This is Indian red, and maybe, hold on, maybe an orange, just to add a little bit of oomph to his red hair. So I'm gonna go for cadmium orange, and I'm gonna go for terracotta. Let's start with the hair before I add anything else. In shape of pencils that I'm already looking for in my palette. Let's go bit by bit by bit with him. So gonna start off with the Indian red. Just add a little color to some of those wavy curly bits here. These are the parts where there's more of a shadow, because then hair also looks darker when light doesn't hit it. And since I'm shading towards the right, the darker spots are gonna be in the neck area, so the lower part here, and also towards the right, which is way higher up here. Then, so you can see a lot more auburn on his right hand side of the head. And then I can move on to the orange, the cat orange, and bring that in on those waves and curls on the left hand side where there's more of a light going on. So the hair is hit with more reflections, and with the terracotta I can dull down the orange a tiny bit make it a little more of a reddish brown, not an orangey brown. There we go. Very subtle is the difference between the parts where I put in the terracotta, but it is visible. Maybe not on camera, but let me assure you, you can see a little difference. So that is that. Onto the skin. Again, shading Jamie's skin just as I did with the priest. So he's gonna get a little bit of that light raw sienna. Is it raw? No, brown ochre kind of a pencil here. Same on his hand, because he works outside a lot, so he is exposed to sun quite a bit, so he has sun-kissed skin as well, maybe a little more of a browner touch than, for example, Claire is having, but needs a little more of an oomph. He's a little too yellowish, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of the, what are you? Burnt sienna, which is a reddish brown. Gonna add that here on to the edge of the skin, very little only, hardly visible at all. All right. Oh, his legs. Haha, totally forgot them. So gonna shade towards the right and the top. Also those bits here on the knee. There's a little darker. Because it's just creases in the skin, so there's indentations, and therefore skin appears to be darker there. Onto the light brown. And of course a tiny little bit of that dark brown here as well, just really very little. I'm working with a super light touch. There we go. So that's the skin tone of Jamie. Now I can move on to let's go with the shirt next. So I'm gonna take the warm gray, the light one, shade the sleeve, and then bring in the darker warm gray pencil to add smaller, more individual shadows to those ruffles here in the shirt. Like so. Let me think. I think I'm gonna shade the jacket first. So I'm gonna take Payne's gray, the coolest dark gray that I have, and black as my pencils for the jacket, the belt, the socks, and the boots. So I'm gonna have to make a little bit of space here because I need to be able to move my hand well and rest it comfortably. And there was just too much of pencil starting to be laying around the left-hand side of my book, which is not comfortable for me. So I had to remedy that and change it up. All right. This is what I call a sharp tip. All right, I'm gonna start with the cool gray number, what is it, 6, to shade the jacket. Still towards the right is the way I shade things. I'm not starting off with Payne's Gray right away, which is a little more of a bluer tint of a dark gray, and definitely my favorite dark gray. But the jacket has the lightest shade of watercolor Payne's Gray, and I want to have the opportunity to shade other parts like the belt and such in a way that is definitely different than the jacket, and also different in hue. So I don't want everything to be shaded with the Payne's Gray pencil there. That's not what I want to see. I want little tiny differences between certain parts of the picture, like when it comes to the fabric, because for example her dress is shaded with the Payne's Gray, and it has, as you can see, a way bluer tint than the cool gray that I'm putting on top right now. So I want these subtle kind of differences when it comes to fabric. And therefore, of course, I'm starting with my cool gray. I hope it makes sense for you where I'm coming from, what I mean. So, yeah. Sometimes maybe a little difficult to explain well, while also coloring and being a little occupied with what I'm doing on my page. So. Ooh. So the tartan here is casting a shadow, which means I'm shading toward that, shading that part of the jacket toward the bottom rather than only the right hand side, so I'm pulling up the shadow towards the left way more. What's going on outside? I hope the audio filter that I'm gonna put on top of my audio recording does filter out all of the sirens here, so there's probably been, I don't know, a car accident or something. I really hope not. It's not a great thing, but well, we just had sirens. So onto that part of the jacket. And I'm also going to shade a little bit towards the top here, because again the tartan is going to cast a shadow. So I can shade that jacket a little more towards the top. Also a tiny little bit here towards the left, but mainly here where the tartan casts a shadow on the fabric. I'm shading more towards the right, so towards the top. There we go. Now I can move on to the Payne's Gray. For one, add some very dark shadows, or just creases in the fabric. Right, that's the jacket done, I think. Maybe a little darker here. There we go. And now I can start shading the belt and the socks. So I'm gonna use the Payne's Gray now, not the cool gray that I had used before. And I'm gonna add a little bit of the indigo blue that is also in Clear Stress as a shading color. It cools down, or it tints the gray even more towards the blue part of the spectrum. And I like that it is color repetition from clear stress. So it just makes for a very smooth look. And that will help with making this picture look cool and quiet and harmonic and such. So on to the socks after another sip of tea. There we go. Oh, yeah. There's belt here. I'm definitely gonna have to shade that. So I'm gonna do that right away, otherwise I forget. Using the same two colors. Now I can go on to the socks. Again, shading them from the right towards the left, starting with the main shadow, so using my Payne's gray there. And then adding a little bit of the indigo blue for the lines in the pattern here, for example. Especially on the right hand side, and then adding the Payne's gray on the left hand side of these lines, so that the blue tint is there, but not too much though. There we go. Now I can actually, before I go towards black and red for the tartan and such and the boots, I can very quickly shade the sheath of the sword. So I'm taking the same brown that I used for the priest's jacket. Put that on top. And a tiny little bit of sepia. I really need to put this into an extender. This is getting very uncomfortable for my hands to grip. There we go. And since I do have the Payne's gray in my hand from the socks, I'm gonna use the Payne's gray pencil, of course, to shade the metal parts of that sword. There we go. And I could actually, since this is metal here, could actually use a little bit of a silver pencil to color it, or give it like a shimmer, because I don't want it to be as silver looking as, say, buttons on his jacket. I could really use metal gel pens for that. But I'm on that lower part here of why is my pencil breaking all the time? That's not great. It's actually usually a Prismacolor problem, not a Polychromos one. Well. Let's retry. That's better. All right. So I'm gonna put a little bit of the silver pencil here as a shimmery highlight, but not as shimmery as the gel pen would look. So that's a little more like it. Onto the tartan, and I'm gonna choose a cadmium dark red for the red part, and I'm gonna have black, of course, for the black part of the tartan, so I can shade that, and also shade the boots with the black. And then I have to decide what else I want to do before I end the video. Maybe the candles. I'm not sure yet, but I'm not gonna work too much longer because I'm actually having a couple of things to do this afternoon, and I can't do the full 2-hour video, nor can I restart, nor can I start on a third video today. So I gotta think about what I want to do in a minute. But first, coloring or shading the tartan. This is where I go in with the black pencil over the majority of my black rectangles here on the tartan, because I really want it to be black. And on the other hand, I need to shade a bit. On the other hand, I want a little of the red watercolor to see through and look through and peek through, so I'm not gonna cover up everything with the red pencil, but I'm gonna enhance some of those lines where there's maybe a shadow, just to make it look a little more interesting. So from the right hand side we can shade here. This is definitely darker, and this is because the fabric is closer together, so that there's like major folds. So it's a little darker up here. Also gonna add the dark red into the other direction, not in the middle though, because this is where things are a little lighter. And this part here can shade towards the right, towards the bottom. Here on these folds there's a little heavier of a contrast as well. Now onto the black for these bits. Boop, 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 boop. Quickly, just adding colored pencil on top, also shading. Those folds in the fabric, and for that part I can use the black because it is like the black pencil to shade, because it is part of the unshaded part of the tartan here. So I have used the black watercolor and only put the red pencil here on top so I can shade even that red part of the tartan here with a black pencil, because there's just enough black in the fabric itself so that it is quite suitable. You know what I mean? Right, on to the next bit. Shaded, shaded, shaded. Now I can shade this underneath. Shade, 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 shade. It might be a little daunting to put the black pencil on top here, because you might think you're losing detail, like parts of the pattern and such. But honestly, it just increases the pattern on other bits of the tartan because you have the contrast between light and dark. So shaded parts because there's folds of fabric that cast a shadow, or tartan is just denser and therefore looks darker in certain spots, or it is because there's less light towards the right hand side. So there's definitely different kinds of ways to explain why there is a very dark part of the tartan. And it is absolutely fine to shade those bits with a black pencil and be generous with the way you're shading. You don't need to use a gray for it, for example. So here we go. Oh, I'm getting to the part of the tartan where I haven't put in my red pencil yet. So putting those on top because shadow is toward the right hand side. So I can color in these bits here with my black pencil now. Shade them. Shade, 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 shade. Here we go. And you can see what kind of a difference it makes, how much the tartan pops by just putting a little bit of colored pencil on top of watercolor. I think that's very visible if you look at this part, if you look at that part. It's blatantly obvious, I think. And by keeping in mind that you can do that and direct the viewer's eye onto a certain part in your picture just by choosing certain colors in comparison to the rest of the painting or the drawing, and also increasing contrast of some of those parts. You can really direct the viewer's eye in any way you want. So you're the boss of how you like to have somebody look at your painting, how their eye wanders pretty much. So I'm getting these folds here, some shading. Go with the black and the red. Same goes for the next fold. And the next one. Go. And now I can move on to the final bit here of the tartan, which I'm gonna shade first towards the right because of how the light hits. Then I'm shading from the top because the jacket is casting a shadow too, so it makes a little more of more intense kind of a red. Now I can shade the tartan itself from the right, because even there the red is darker. So first the whole shading, and there's some here underneath the jacket. Now I can go in and color all of these black rectangles with my black pencil, because anything else is shaded that is not a black rectangle. It's pretty much the same thing that I did with these folds up here. So shading the whole tartan and then of course darkening up those black rectangles separately, no matter if there's a part that is shaded or not. So I need a little more of the red colored pencil here. And I think I'm just gonna color the boots, and then I'm gonna call it a day today and finish the video and film the next part tomorrow, because it's way in the afternoon already, and I need to take care of boring things like household and such, and I can't film while I do that because audio would be horrible with my washing machine running in the background. I think you wouldn't like that a lot. But let me sharpen my black pencil once more and then shade the boots. First towards the right hand side, of course, like all over shading. And then I can be a little harder with the touch that I put in here for those creases. I can add way more pressure to my hand and like that darken up some of the bits of the boot here and make it look a little more distinct, a little more contrasty with just one and the same pencil, you know? Same goes. Oh, one side. Ooh, that was a spasm. Grrr, that wasn't nice in my legs. Well, that's when you sit in the same position for a long while. That can happen. But I can now just shade the other boot. Just the same way as I did before. First of all, overall shading. And then I can add those details here with a little more pressure, just adding in those wrinkles and folds in the boots. And also add more of a harsher, darker shadow here towards the right hand side. Da, 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 da. There we go. So this is Claire, Jamie and the Priest shaded. I'm not gonna put in gel pens just yet. I'm gonna do that at the very last step of finishing this picture. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope you are coloring this page alongside. If you do, I would love to see your creations, so send it to me via Instagram DM or Facebook DM. You can also tag me if you like to make your work public as well. I would love that. All the pencils that I used today are listed up on my blog. By now you can hop on over to my webpage pinselgeschichten.de and look up the most recent post. In case you watch this video way after it has been published, just go to my webpage, enter the title of the video into the search bar. You will be directed to the according blog post right away, and you can read up on which pencil numbers I used exactly. I'm gonna see you next week with the next part when I move on to the background and get that shimmer of the candles in and such. And I hope you enjoyed and have a lovely, lovely week. Be creative, color, paint, draw, do all the awesome things and have fun with it. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time. Bye.